Well, the House voted to impeach the president almost a month ago. Democrats at the time argued that impeachment was a matter of national security. They were trying to protect this nation. And yet, weirdly, they haven't really done much about it since then. And finally, today, Nancy Pelosi announced the appointment of 7 so-called impeachment managers who will prosecute the president during a trial in the Senate. As she made the announcement, Pelosi delivered a very odd speech, which you should watch online, comparing impeachment to the American Revolution. Here's part of it.
Even our poets, Longfellow. Remember, listen, my children, and you will hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive that remembers that famous day and year. It's always about marking history using time.
Gotta wonder why the other networks don't put more unedited footage of Nancy Pelosi on the air. It's pretty unbelievable. She also paused to remind everyone that impeachment definitely is not an election year stunt. It's not political at all. It's serious. It's prayerful. It's like a pope's funeral, really.
This is a very serious matter, and we take it to heart in a really solemn way. He has been held accountable. He has been impeached. He's been impeached forever. They can never erase that.
Ooh, it's eternal. The president's soul has been marked for all time. His complaint about Hunter Biden's corrupt sweetheart job will be brought up on the day of judgment before he is cast inevitably into the lake of fire for eternity. That's how serious this is, according to Nancy Pelosi. Senator John Kennedy is a Republican representing the state of Louisiana. He joins us tonight. Senator, thanks so much for coming on.
You bet.
The president will be marked for all time. This is indelible, this mark of impeachment, the mark of the beast. What's your assessment of that claim?
Well, I think the Senate is going to have something to say about this. You don't have to be Mensa material, Tucker, to see that Speaker Pelosi is swollen with partisan rage. And the whole process in the House was rigged. We're going to do it differently in the Senate. We're going to treat both sides fairly. As I said the other day, when we're done, I don't want the American people to look at the Senate's work and say, well, we just got run over by the same truck twice. It was unfair in the House and it was unfair in the Senate. I want people to walk away and say, look, the Senate was fair. They did it right. They gave equal time to both sides, and we understand the allegations, and the Senate voted, and that's what we're going to try to do.
It's probably unknowable at this stage, but what do you expect the timeline roughly to be for this?
I think there'll be a presentation first by the prosecution, and there's been a lot of talk about, well, witnesses. I realize that common sense is illegal in Washington, but common sense would tell you that discussion of witnesses is premature. We don't know, the senators anyway. We don't know the details of the prosecution's case. We don't know the details of President Trump's defense because Speaker Pelosi didn't allow him to have one. And in terms of the prosecution's case, if you ask 9 out of 10 senators, they'll tell you they hadn't read the transcripts of the House, and the 10th is lying. All they have done is look at the news articles, and they're reading the media reports. And as we know, after the reporting on the Steele dossier, you have to be careful what you read. So we need to hear the prosecution, and then we need to hear the defense. I think that'll take probably 4 days together. Then the senators can ask questions. That'll take a couple of days. I'll learn a lot from listening to the questions, and I'll learn a lot from listening to the answers. And then after we actually possibly know what we're talking about, we can make a decision about witnesses. Now, I want to be fair about the witnesses. If we end up calling Chuck Schumer's witnesses or the Speaker Pelosi's witnesses, I think the Speaker and Senator Schumer are together on it. I want to treat the defense fairly. The president gets to call witnesses too.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a level playing field, and we could end up in a very odd circumstance where Senator Schumer, he caught the car. I mean, he asked for his witnesses. They're all White House aides. The president claims executive privilege. In fairness, the president gets his witnesses. So we end up hearing from Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, whoever else is on the witness list,
Yeah.
Chairman, any of the chairmen that were involved. And the prosecution doesn't get to hear its witnesses because of executive privilege.
Well, that sounds fair to me. We'll see. Senator, thanks so much. Now you've got me excited for it. Appreciate it. And a scenario like the one you just heard is being openly discussed and considered by Senator Mitch McConnell. He has considered dismissing President Trump's impeachment without calling any witnesses at all, but some Republicans think public hearings could have merit. Today, Senator Ted Cruz floated the idea of witness reciprocity. Each party gets to call the same number of witnesses. McConnell suddenly seems open to that idea. Watch.
Would you support calling Hunter Biden?
Well, I think we'll be dealing with the witness issue at the appropriate time into the trial. And I think it's certainly appropriate to point out that both sides would want to call witnesses that they wanted to hear from. So when you get to that issue, I can't imagine that only the witnesses that our Democratic colleagues would want to call would be called.
Seems fair. Congressman Mike Johnson represents Louisiana, and he joins us tonight. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks,
do you think that's fair, and will it happen?
Of course it's fair. I agree with what my Senator John Kennedy just said, that that just makes good common sense. And if you're going to call witnesses, if that becomes necessary, you have to allow it for both sides. So the reciprocity principle should be applied. And I can tell you who we'd like to hear from. I mean, I would put first on the list Adam Schiff. He doesn't need to be a manager. He needs to be a witness in this thing because he engineered the whole process. You would have to call Hunter Biden because his information of being on Burisma, this terribly corrupt company in Ukraine, his direct knowledge of all that is directly applicable to what the president's frame of reference was, the context about the corruption in Ukraine. And, you know, Joe Biden might have something to say about that as well. How did his son get on that board in the first place? And then you've got Devin Archer, who was a friend of Hunter Biden, who also served on the board. I mean, this is important information that goes right to the heart of the case. So if we're going to go down that road, yeah, I think you've got to have those witnesses as well.
Well, then everything you said not only seems right, it's hard to know what the counter-argument would be. And so given that, I'm confused by why the Senate, controlled by Republicans, because as the left always says, elections have consequences, why they're not just demanding this and making it happen. Why is there any question at all that Hunter Biden would testify at this trial? I mean, of course he should.
Well, the first question is whether you need witnesses or not. And I think if this case is put on, I think the managers that they've sent over, they really don't have much to work with. I mean, I litigated cases in federal courts for 20 years. They don't have the facts or the law on their side, Tucker. And so that's a real problem for them. I think once they're done presenting that case, I think everyone in the Senate is going to recognize, once they do hear the details, as Senator Kennedy just said, they'll realize there's nothing there. It's a vapid case. So there may not be a need. I don't think there will be a need for witnesses because it'll be so clear to everyone. And that will dispense with the whole question.
Yeah, I think that sounds like it's right. Congressman, thanks a lot for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tucker.